Hey y'all, hope you're doing good. So, I have missed being on here with you all. I think this might be the longest I've ever gone without making a video, but I have spent a lot of wonderful time with my daughter and my family, and I am getting a lot done. So, I'm really inspired by the new year, and so I am probably like a lot of you all, just reevaluating everything, priorities and even just stuff, that we have, our literal material possessions, just going through and cleaning out and reorganizing and stuff like that. And so I tend to do my what they call spring cleaning, just sort of odd times in the year, typically around New Year and in the fall. I don't know, fall has always felt like spring to me. But that's what I've been doing, but I have missed you all. I've just been super, super busy, and it's really stuff that has needed to be done for a long time. And so I hope that you are finding inspiration, whether it's just because it's the new year or something totally different. I hope that you are able to find some inspiration um, to produce some good things in your own life. Even if they're small, just little accomplishments can really mean a lot, and can totally shift your mindset when you're finding yourself stuck on the negative. That's what I'm finding anyway. So today's message is going to be based on a couple of books I have. One of these I got used a long time ago, actually, and the other one was just a simple little book that I bought just on a whim years ago. And so we'll be looking at inspiration from The Dip by Seth Godin. I guess it's pronounced Godin or Godin. And this is essentially about, well, it says a little book that teaches you when to quit and when to stick. And so it's really interesting, and we're going to talk about that. And then The Great Paradox, and it says, how can a man lose his life and save it? And so this is more of a spiritual book here, but I like the way that it's written. I have read The Dip cover to cover. It's a really easy, quick read. But this one I have not read, but I did flip through, and I can't pronounce the author's name here, but it's very well written, and I like how he details out some of the really, I would say, just important examples of the different people in the Bible, what they went through and what happened. And so he kind of simplifies that and uses that as an example for, our lives too. And so we'll just go through that as well. Okay. And so essentially we're going to be talking about going into 2025 operating in the smartest way. And when I say the smartest way, and that's all going to depend, it's kind of subjective, right? Because you've got this person over here, if their goal is financially driven, then what we're going to talk about today is going to be probably considered dumb to them. It's going to be totally irrelevant. So it's up to each person. It truly is a subjective thing. But when I say operating in the smartest way, here's what I mean. I mean a life that is fruitful, that produces good fruit, okay? A life that is protected, a life of discernment, and also a life that can be enjoyed and is capable, is positioned in such a way that it is able and capable and unhindered, right, from serving a good purpose. A life that is capable of serving a good purpose. Because if you have, different things going on in your life that are kind of like those quadrant 4, like Stephen Covey calls, the fire alarms. They're just taking all of your time and your energy, your efforts, everything. You're going to be distracted away from a greater, higher purpose. And so, that's what I mean when I say operating in the smartest way. It's in relation to all those things, right? That being the desired outcome. Okay, so in this book, I'm just going to give you a quick little overview of what it is. If you have interest, then you can purchase it. I believe it's probably still on Amazon, but he's essentially given examples and explaining how and why very successful business people have come into their success because of decisions made along the way, along their path, their career paths, where they had to just totally, just not even shift gears, but just go into a totally different industry sometimes. I don't know if that's actually in this book, but I know there are stories like that. But a lot of times, in order to be successful, you have to abandon or give up on, your current focus or something that you've poured a lot of time and effort into. You have to just let that go, and that's hard, to, as they say, cut your losses. And so that's essentially what this book is about. But he gives examples, real life examples of how that has turned out really, really well in business for people who have done that, and how we can apply that in our life too. That philosophy, that way of living. So that was, this has been on my mind for some reason. And probably because I'm not the kind of person who can quit easily. I'm just not. I'm a very extremely dedicated person. And so, but it's just been sitting around the house, and one of those things where I'll pick it up and I'll move it over here, and then I'll think that I've put it up, and then it shows up somewhere else. So I'm like, I guess this is here for a reason. So what was ironic is in bringing my message together, okay, being inspired for this message, I picked up this old book that I have. So let me read the inside cover of this book just to give you a summary before I share the excerpt. Okay, it says, "This book will appeal to those who have searched in vain for the true purpose of their existence. Those who would like to follow or review the thoughts of a scholar, teacher, and minister who has spent most of his 78 years comparing man-made philosophies with the Christian way of life. Those who like to ponder philosophically the meaning of life and man's place in it. Christ said, 'He that findeth his life,'" and then he's got in brackets here, "'selfishly shall lose it spiritually,'" right? "And he that loseth his," and then again in brackets, "'selfish materialistic attachment to life,' shall find it in the form of peace here on earth and eternal spiritual life through salvation." So it says Christ's words were beautifully simple and saturated with meaning, but as spoken they present a great paradox to the average person. And then it says the author explains it by amplifying the thoughts bracketed above. Your life can be made richer through this understanding. If you enjoy a measure of success, yet feel a vague uneasiness during moments of solitude, the author has written for you. Let him reveal the cause of your anxiety. Learn from him the truly effective cure. So, I thought, there's a reason why I picked this up a long time ago, why I bought it. But, again, it's called The Great Paradox. And it was written in the 50s. But it's got a part 1 and a part 2. Part 1 he calls Losing by Finding. And this is all of the ways that people outside of Christianity, right, try to approach life. What they choose as their mode of operation and what they place in that seat of importance, sort of like the center place in their life, the lens they look through, right? How they create their values. And so he's got this broken down within part 1, the chapters. He's got the setting of the problem, the life of pleasure, the will to power, the reign of reason, the harmonious self, happiness for all, and the meeting of the roads. And then part 2 is finding by losing, a remarkable piece of history, contending ideas and ideals the way of unselfishness, the way of love, the way of life, the solution of the paradox. And so, essentially, he concludes with, and this is just my brief skimming over what was detailed out right there in the contents, which is, living an unselfish life that is placing the golden rule at the forefront. Living for love and living to love one another. So something stuck out to me, and I want to share that with you all. And I see now that my bookmark has fallen out. So hang on. So on page 130, it says towards the bottom, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself," right? And he gives some Bible verses related to that. It says, "One who loves another as he loves himself will evidently do for him what he would want done for himself." And then on the next page, 131 to 132, I'm going to read a little bit longer excerpt here. It says, "If our love is all that it should be, it will aim at the true welfare of others. There is a love which falls short on this count. While it is sincere and eager to serve, it is nearsighted or even blind and foolish. It acts as if it must always be guided by the wishes of the loved one, without considering how their fulfillment will work out for his future welfare. A parent in his right mind," this is an example, right, "will not give a small child a keen knife as a plaything, no matter how much the child may plead for it. Yet the same parent may feel obligated or obliged," it says, "to grant a friend's request for something that will injure the friend." I'm thinking, like, if you know your friend's an alcoholic, I don't think you would want to just, help, what's that called? Like when you're enabling, just on your own, just bring them something because it's going to be pleasing to them, but it's detrimental for the health, sort of like that, right? Just one example that comes to mind. It says, "That is certainly not the way of true love, but of weakness and folly. Love must be able, on occasion, to deny, to refuse compliance, to cause disappointment and pain, in order that greater values may not be endangered or lost. For the same reason, we must also use care in doing for others what we would want them to do for us. We sometimes want things which we should neither want nor have." That's hard truth. "And the same is true of others. Perhaps we should like to be given undue preference over other people, to be flattered," which is just an example. But this next part I underlined. "Or to be indulged in a bad habit." All right, that's a common thing too. And then this last part is really important. "That is no reason why we should feel bound to gratify others who have the same desires, or why they should gratify us. It would be best for both parties to be denied their wishes." And so there's a big difference, in our wants and our needs, and what should be and what's best for us, right? And so again, knowing when to quit, knowing when to remove yourself from a situation, or a group, a friend group, a workplace, a relationship, whatever it is crucial. You have to get to a place where you can be at peace with releasing these things, with letting go, because it doesn't feel, this is the conclusion I've drawn. It doesn't feel peaceful when you've always considered commitment itself and dedication itself as being a value that you're sticking to, because then that value is in the driver's seat when you're operating your vehicle of, on the road of life. I feel like I'm a little girl looking way up at y'all. But you see what I'm saying? Putting commitment in the center place can backfire in that way. So, the irony here is that commitment's not bad. It's about what we're really committed to. Are we committed to commitment, for example? Because if not, if there's something greater, right, a higher purpose, something more important and more encompassing than that, then you can consider the act of peacefully releasing and letting go of something. You can consider that a healthy part of commitment to something greater, which is, again, what, as far as business goes, what this book is about. So, but it's very true in our personal life too, right? Okay, and I think that it's human nature to kind of like, that's why I talk about expansion a lot on my channel and a bird's eye view, and just being able to see the bigger picture, because when you are so focused in on something, it's kind of like that's all you see. And so like commitment is a good thing, but it's not the whole. You see what I'm saying? And so when we're just attached to that value at the we don't realize we're excluding all these others. And so it's that we're talking about shifting your mindset, but I think it's human nature to just do that for some reason, to latch on to a detail, to get lost in the details. It's kind of like being lost in the woods, and not being able to see the forest for the trees. It's kind of like that. So one way to think of this is, sometimes we invest in, we commit ourselves to, and pour everything in, not just our efforts and energy, but even our feelings. We get emotionally invested, in people and even in environments, or a place, or a neighborhood, or a workplace, or anything, an area, in the world, or whatever, in the country, in your state, a city, whatever. And it can be not good for us, right? But what happens is we're so accustomed to commitment that, that's taking precedence over the fact that we are being given all these little minor kind of like precursors or warning signs, okay, that there's ultimately going to be an even bigger consequence down the road. And we just overlook all that stuff. We overlook all of the just negative outcomes and results from, say, repeated interactions with this toxic person. Or going back to work day after day after day and just expecting even just something bad, depending on what's going on in that toxic workplace. I mean, I could just expand till the cows come home, but it's why. There's so many examples. But we don't just tolerate. I'm not talking about that. We do that. We tolerate, but we also just minimize and overlook and dismiss all of these red flags. And the problem with that is it can come down to being dangerous, right? Not only can it prevent us from just a healthier, more fulfilling life, but it can literally be dangerous. But what came to my mind in thinking through all this, when we're in that kind of a situation and we're so committed that it's kind of like we're going down on the Titanic anyway. It's sort of like in the Bible, it talks about building on sand versus, solid rock. There's a difference. And we don't realize that we have built on sand. And so this is why there is a difference in the Christian Bible and all of its teachings, they're so valuable, for everyone. But there's a difference in understanding that and not understanding that. And it's not just literal and physical that it's not good to build on sand, but it's also metaphorical. And so therefore it's a truth that can be amplified and metaphorically applied to so many different parts of our lives. We can start to understand that this, whatever it is that we, put years and years into, was on sand from the get-go. And when you can start to see that, when you can start to look back and see that, then you start to make better choices going forward, right? Because these kind of investments, whether it is a business investment or a job decision or a marriage or whatever it is, or you trying and spinning your wheels and still trying and clinging to hope and commitment to make a good relationship out of, your engagement with a family member, whatever it is, they're doomed, just like being built on sand, to sink. And so it comes down to why we choose what we do. Why? It has to be for the right reasons. It has to be. And we have to educate ourselves so that we can put those right reasons in the forefront of our mind as we operate in this life. We have to be smart enough to know what they are and to cling to those right reasons. Okay, there's always a reason. I mean, if you ask anybody why they're continuing down this, destructive path or whatever it is, they're going to give you a reason. But it comes down to doing things for the right reasons, which is mentioned in that book again, which I've laid down. I don't know where I put it, over here on the chair. Mentioned in this book. He talks about the right reasons. All right. As an example in the Bible, it's there's one verse where I think it's Jesus. He's talking about don't do as the Pharisees, or I forget who he says do. He says, for they have their reward. In other words, their intention is all on this plane, on this, physical plane, to get attention, stuff like that. That's their intention, to get attention. And he's like, so they'll be rewarded in accordance with that. See? He's like, so when you pray, your intention, if it's not to get attention from the world, then you'll be rewarded differently. And it's the same dynamic in our life applied in different ways, not just with praying, right? And I think that the reason we go against our gut, and it's not even, it's kind of like you may not even notice it. Your gut may not even, you may not even hear it or remember any red flags at all, or anything like that. Or if you do, they may have just been so quickly dismissed or minimized that you may have remembered barely feeling a little uncomfortable or a little conflicted, but you continued on. But we just go with the flow. Unfortunately, we just kind of get caught up in this stream, this river of normality. It's kind of like, well, everybody else is doing it. All my friends, are doing X, Y, Z. So we just kind of think that this is a standard because it's shown to us. And the problem with that is people have a hard time admitting when they're wrong, and they don't want to go around and advertise their failures, and so you don't know about that. Especially nowadays with social media, it truly is everyone's what they call highlight reel. And so the irony is that these reels aren't real, you know? And so, but we just go with the flow. Um, and to go against it, it requires strong commitment to the right values, you know? And when I say strong commitment, I mean to the degree, since we're talking, again, I'm a visual person, since we're talking metaphorically, like being caught up in the stream, because that's the easy path. It feels right. It's just easy going. There's a lot of choices, you know, different rafts you can hop on and ride down the stream or whatever. But to go against that, it's literally, it feels like you're trying to break out of a riptide. You know, if you think about the riptides in the ocean, it's like it takes a lot of strength to stand on your own. And even not to gaslight yourself. Because all the evidence seems to say this is the right way over here. And so that sometimes you have to go down that stream a little ways and experience some consequence a little bit until you stop and you know reevaluate. But yeah. I mean there's always going to be innumerable philosophies and teachings that'll seem to be reasonable, you know, as far as how to do life, but ultimately if you take the time to be alone, a lot of times when we're very busy in life socially, we're drowning, we don't realize it, but we're drowning out our gut. You have to be alone enough, and I don't mean just like alone as far as people, but even alone with not a lot of distractions like your TV, you know, or music blaring, or just a lot of, you know, like even your pets or whatever's trying to compete for your attention. It's like you have to, because all that will drown out your intuition. So you have to get to a place where you can just check in with yourself and discern if you feel like you're out of balance in some way, because you'll know. That'll be the first sign. It was for me. And sometimes we don't get just a slight indication that we're out of balance. Sometimes we get a strong indication that we're out of balance. And some of us, you know, unfortunately are given a really strong wake-up call. So yeah. So I consider all of this, you know, in the Bible there's a lot of verses that talk about this part of life. Really, it's a wandering stage in life. And all the myths and fairy tales talk about it too. You know, again, these people are going through the woods. They're lost in somewhere outside at night. They're going through a mist, or it's always a confusing stage where they don't, I think the Bible uses the phrase, they don't know if they're going left or right or which way to turn. It's a wandering stage. And I personally perceive all the different options out there across the world for how to do life, all the approaches and philosophies. I perceive them that way. And I have looked at a lot of them myself in depth and read books and everything. And that's why I love that song by the Indigo Girls. I like several of their songs. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it talks about that. I'll drop it in the description. It's late. I'm tired, y'all. But I wanted to be here with you all. So, but it talks about that. Just, you know, she says, I've done this and I've done that and I've done this and I've done that. You know, and it's like, that's what happens. You're just all over the place. So how do we get out of that mode of operation? How do we clean that up? It's the new year, you know? How do we get refocused and recentered? How do we do that? The Bible says, this was so cool. God put this verse on my heart the other day, and then one of the channels I watch on YouTube, I remember who it was, she mentioned this. I watch several ladies that talk about Bible verses and teachings. I don't remember which one it was. If I remember, I'll drop it in the description. But she mentioned this verse, which is, seek first the kingdom of God, and all else will be added unto you. And so that tells you right there what should be in that center place. First and foremost, the lenses we look through, our perception filter, number one in our life, however you want to frame it, that's it. Because again, you have so many options out there. And I think that we can fall into the trap of, it's an ego trap, of thinking that we are wise, in our own way, in our own mind. The Bible, talks about that too, by just picking and choosing a little bit from this philosophy and a little bit from this philosophy. And it has its advantages. You get to connect, with different people and discuss this philosophy. There's books over here on this one. It's really interesting. And there's just, it's like I'm thinking of like a buffet. That's what I'm thinking of. I haven't been to one of those in years, but yeah, it's kind of like that. Just a little here, a little there, and then you wind up constructing your own, through your own wisdom, your own mode of operating, and then you get trapped by thinking that you're doing the right thing, staying committed, when really you started out building on sand to begin with. It's sinking and you're not willing to let it go. It's kind of, it takes humility. It takes being humble. It does, to release, something that you have clung so tightly to for so long, whatever it is. But boy, what a relief. What a relief. And sometimes life-saving. So, yes. So clinging to, being committed really first to the kingdom of God, right? Seeking first the kingdom of God. I think that we need to process our past mistakes and our painful consequences. That has to be a part of our learning process. It's part of our journey. There's no getting around it. It is what it is. But as we're doing that, if we process it through this lens of seeking first the kingdom, then I think going forward, this is on my experience, it will give you the confidence that you need to choose differently in the future. Okay? It's all about, for me, it's all about understanding why this happened. What was my focal point in this stage of my life, or in these particular decisions I made? What was the driving factor? Why did I choose this and this and this? When you understand that, and then when you have something in comparison, like, okay, this is what should have been in the forefront of my mind, then it makes sense. It gives you context, it gives you perspective, and that is what gives you confidence in taking new steps going forward. It does for me, okay? A hard part of this is that we can wake up to realizing that people that we've known for a long time, okay, may not truly be in alignment with God's directives, with the kingdom, the essence, the spirit of the kingdom, okay? And this is hard to admit, I think, when you are when you're a humble person, because you're just going to immediately dismiss it and say, well, nobody's perfect. Well, how many times have you done that? I've done that a billion times. You're just not a judgmental person by nature. But it's not about judging like, well, you're going to hell, or I don't know, stuff like that. It's not like that. It's about judging, like using your discernment, judging, and that's crucial. And it's not just out here, but it's in here too. Like we just talked about, reflecting on past decisions and why did you do that? And, look at the consequences caused. What was the focal point on the reason you made these decisions? Well, then what should have been your reason, and how would that have changed the outcome? So it's self-reflection, but we have to apply this lens to other people too. And it's super hard, but you're going to find that there's people you've known. And and we're going to talk about that, okay? As far as who's in your inner circle, or however you want to frame it, whoever you're close to, the deciding factor has to be, it's like Jesus said. He says, if your right hand offends you, cut it off. This is obviously metaphorical. But it's like, why? It's like that's giving up on somebody, right? And I know that this can be about yourself too. Like if there's a tendency you have, a habit you have that's bad, cut that off. But it says, if not, I don't have it written down in front of me, the verse, but it says, it's better to lose that member than the whole body, for the whole body to suffer consequence, let's just say. And so, we're considered members in the body of Christ. It's kind of like we're parts of a whole, okay? So who you associate with is critical. It's critical. It's not just kind of important. It's critical. And that's why this is also critical. You have to know when to quit, okay? When to give up. So again, that verse says, if your right hand offends you. I looked up offend in the online etymology dictionary. From the early 14th century, you have the word offenden, which is to disobey or sin against a person, human or divine. Then you have the old French offendre, meaning hit, attack, injure, sin against, antagonize, excite to anger. And then you have the Latin offendere, meaning hit, strike against, to stumble, or I would say to cause to stumble, if someone causes you to stumble, okay? Trespass against, and so on and so forth. And then also in the late 14th century, to violate, to wound the feelings of. And then to break down the word offend, it's from ob, meaning in front of, and fendere, to strike. So again, you have to reverse that. It means to strike in front of. This is a blockage. This is a blockage. Anyone who is antagonizing you, exciting you to anger, sinning against you, if they're hitting you, if they're attacking you, if they're injuring you, if they're causing you to stumble, all of this stuff is blocking you from the kingdom, spiritually here now. The kingdom, this is the way I see it. And again, I'm no scholar, but this is how I see it. Jesus says that the kingdom of God is within. And so it's a here and now thing and an after thing. I believe it's both. It's the body that dies. The spirit, energy never dies. We are energy, our true essence. So the kingdom is kind of like, it's there. It's there. But accessing it is so, that's why it's described as the narrow path, and it's kind of like going through the eye of a needle and all this stuff. Okay. So all of this is blocking you, and you may be like, well, blocking me from what? From success? I don't care about that. I care more about loving these people, even if they're not perfect. I get it. I totally get it. It's not about that. That's not what I'm talking about. Um, Let me share with you this. Titus chapter 3, verse 10. This is the New International Version, I believe, translation. Warn a divisive person once and then a second time after that. I'm sorry. Warn a divisive person once and then a second time. After that, have nothing to do with them. That's pretty strong. And then the King James Version is, a man that is a heretic, after the first and second admonition, reject. So I looked up the word heretic. Heretic? I don't know how to say this. I've read it a lot. I don't remember how it's pronounced. But it's one who holds different values, which seems neutral, but heresy is really related to immorality. Okay? So you have the Latin from the Greek word heresies, meaning a taking or choosing for oneself, a choice, purpose, plan, again, kind of neutral. But this is from heresthai, meaning to take and seize. Okay? Then let's bring this down a little bit further. This is all in the online etymology dictionary. You can look it up. There are other related words, and one of them, as an example, is the Welsh word herw, which translated means booty. Maybe a little chuckle for you there, a little laugh. But from the mid-15th century, right, this means plunder taken from an enemy in war. I'm thinking of like pirates. I think there's even like a snack that you can buy. It's like a little flavored popcorn or something that's called Pirate's Booty. But that's what it means. See how subtle? And the devil's like that. He's subtle. Again, somebody mentioned, I was listening to the other day, it's, she didn't say this part, but Hollywood, in the movies, when demons and the devil are represented in character, they're very scary and just outlandish and wild and just super scary and to induce fear. But the problem is, in the Bible, the devil's described very differently as an angel of light, right? And so, again, the people who are operating in that same energy are also cloaked in sheep's clothing. They're really ravenous wolves. So even looking at how words can seemingly mean something neutral, it's not bad. If you dig a little deeper, just a little deeper, and then a little deeper than that, just go a little further, you'll find the true motive. See? So, again, plunder is goods taken by force. And so that's the energy that some of us have finally come to understand is behind the motives of people who are not in alignment with the kingdom, the spirit of love, true love, right? Because values can be mimicked 1,000,000%. They can be mimicked very well. That's what makes up the sheep's clothing, is the mimicking, the acting. And these people are great actors. But I would just remind you that, vibes don't lie. They don't. Energy doesn't lie. And there's a reason that we are warned not to cast our pearls. Again, it says, lest they turn and trample them. So, in this book, there's mentions in the beginning of, like, nature, how there are parts that make up a whole. And he talks about, like, inorganic versus organic, and I was reminded of the man-o-war jellyfish, which is not really a jellyfish, but it's the closest relatable animal that we know of. But the man of war is made up. It's one entity made up by many, many other smaller entities living as one. And so this is going to bring us into the heart of the message today. Because again, this is relatable because we are called members of one body, right? Spiritually, we are parts of a greater whole. And this is critical. I'm coming to understand to our discernment. Okay? So back to that verse I mentioned earlier. The reason we have to cut off a member, cut off metaphorically, a part or a piece, is because it can affect us, not just negatively. Again, I feel like a little girl here. But it can also produce the results of what the devil is all about, which again, the devil is said in the Bible he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Okay? Now, when you are clinging to this value of commitment to whatever it is or whoever it is, I just want to remind you that we're not Jesus in that way, like that. Like in the sacrificial kind of way. Okay? It's not, in other words, it's not honorable to be committed to a person, a group, even family, a place, anything or anyone to the point of harm or worse. And that reminds me, I wrote down Patrick Weaver Ministries. He's really dedicated to that cause, that there are life-saving reasons for divorce. A lot of people are shamed for that in churches, which is bizarre in my opinion because it can save a life. And to me, divorce is not a paper. Divorce is the first time that that covenant is broken. That's just how I see it. But we are affected. Don't think that you can be strong enough, can be whatever enough to not be affected with or by someone or something that is creating negativity in your life, even if it just seems like it's not a big deal. Catch yourself. If you're minimizing, if you're dismissing, okay, all these warning signs, these red flags, please catch yourself, because it truly can be life-saving. Because we are affected if we are yoked, what the Bible calls yoked, with anyone or anything that doesn't share that same spirit. Again, because values can be mimicked, but vibes don't lie. Okay? Going back to the man of war, jellyfish, and us being members of one body and all this. We think as we're just going through life, I think a lot, we just don't even think about it. It's just an assumption that we're separate because that's what the eyes see. That's what the senses tell us. That, it's, I think even in psychology, we're called objects. But we have this just automatic assumption that we're all separate. And I think that viewing ourselves as separate from everything and everyone else I think it's an illusion, but it also is dangerous. Because the conclusion from that is that we're safe, that there's distance, that we can't be affected, okay? And that we can remain around a toxic person or environment or whatever and not be affected, but that's not true, okay? Think about it. Just, logically, even through the academic lens, science, that's fine. There's no actual empty space. There's only particles and atoms and gases, and there's they're either microscopic or they're invisible, but they're there, you know? So reality, and I mean material, physical reality, and I would say even spiritual reality, energetic, is more like an ocean, right? Energetically, it's referred to a lot as the ether, I guess that would be energetically. Maybe it's more atmospherically. I don't know. But just consider this. Consider this. Just, if you'd like, you can do this exercise, this mental exercise with me, to just kind of do a little shift in your mind and consider reality to be more like an ocean. All right? So I have learned that we will be affected if we try to remain in an environment that isn't in accordance or in alignment with goodness. And when I say goodness, I mean so many ways. So again, back to the ocean visualization, right? If there's a poisonous substance poured in over here at this area, okay, you're not going to be like, well, that's over there and I'm right here, so it's okay, because you're going to understand that it's eventually going to spread and contaminate everything around it, okay? This simple mindset shift will help you so, so much. It has me. Yes. So, again, don't compromise. We have to seek first the kingdom, and this has to be the bar for ourselves and for others, for our environment, for everything. And look for the fruits. Look for the fruits. That's how you will know them, right? By their fruits. Don't dismiss the fruits. Don't dismiss any consequences that you experience, no matter how minor, okay? Consequences are meant to redirect us. And again, it's not just about peace and contentment and joy and happiness and laughter at stake. Sometimes it's literally your life, your health, your safety, your life, and ultimately, on the spiritual level, your soul. It's kind of like, again, that energy of the devil seeming as the angel of light, and the wolf's cloaked in the sheep's clothing, and these people who can mimic values, and the result is that somehow you're caught up in this cloud of confusion, okay? And you're going downhill. Your health is going downhill. Your mind is going downhill. The things that God has placed in your life for you to steward, such as your home, your property, your projects, all this is being sabotaged. You're not even able to give it the attention that it needs, because your time is being robbed from you, like we talked about earlier. Goods taken by force. But the force, thinking again of Star Wars, the force. But the force doesn't come across in real life like a Hollywood movie. It just doesn't. When the goods are taken, it's done real subtle. See? Okay? So there's a book I had a long time ago. It was on being stoic. I was about to say stoicism. Is that how you say it? Stoicism? But it had a close-up picture of a angel statue, like her face. I don't remember who wrote it or what the name of it was or what, years ago. But it was kind of it was an easy book to read, but it wasn't just like a book that made you just all happy inside. It kind of was very sobering. and I read this like in my early 20s, and it kind of was the whole book sort of a hard pill to swallow. And I have to take these things with a grain of salt, and don't let it affect you too much. You have to remember, the Bible says to focus on the good things and watch what you take in. And I was remembering that when I was reading this book too. But it was giving examples of how you can really take charge of your life and get your priorities straight, get your ducks in a row in a hurry by doing exercises such as just a visualization of you being at the end of your life, and reflecting back on life, and imagining, like, was it worth it that you made the choices you did and stuff like that. It's kind of like working backwards, and then like you come out of your visualization, you're like, oh, I have the opportunity now to make the changes that I saw in my visualization that I should have made. So I get it, but it's powerful if you want to sit and journal on that and think about it and close your eyes, go through the whole process. But truly, at the end of life, I think we're all going to look back on everything, all of it. But, you would ask yourself things like, I wrote down, was it worth it to tolerate, something, or to stay, or to subject yourself time and again, because I think that at the end of your life, you can look back over this greater span. It's sort of like I can imagine, probably don't have a choice but to have an expanded view. In other words, at the end of your life, you're going to see the whole forest then. Right now, you can't see the forest for the trees, but then you're going to see the forest. You're going to be like, oh man, oh no, So just consider, if you choose this over here, this option, then what are you forfeiting, And I'm not talking about in a selfish manner. I'm talking about like stuff that's really, really, really important. Even including your own sanity and safety and all that stuff. Consequences if you're still alive, right? If you haven't been impacted to that degree, if you're still here, consequences are a blessing if heeded, if understood for what they really are. They're meant to redirect us, right? Yeah. So consequent, the word, means a thing which follows from a cause. A cause. When we're brushing things off and minimizing and dismissing, I think sometimes we don't give any attention at all to there being a cause. But we should. We should. Even if you can't put your finger on it, there is a cause. I'm going to mention again that ocean. So if we consider ourselves like in this ocean, think of it like a sea of, like, everything's connected, like unity, but everything's connected, okay? One body, this ocean. It sounds nice, but in reality, you would swim away from those toxic substances. You would, right? So it's this illusion of separation that we're operating from that makes us think that we can continue to be near something caustic or toxic and not be affected. So this mindset has really impacted me. It's shifted my priorities. I just urge you to consider proximity. We're in the world, but proximity matters. If you consider just through that lens, you could just map out or just draw out, this visualization of proximity and put the kingdom right in the middle, And this is a whole nother topic. We could go way down. Other channels have and all this stuff, right, in the Bible, like what this means. But seeking first the kingdom, if that's truly in the middle of your map and you have everything laid out, right? And again, you're going to know people who share that same spirit by their fruits, okay? If you don't minimize them, look at the results, look at results. Then we can see, it's sort of like that's our lens, and we can see where everyone really is on this spiritual map. It's like a map of discernment. You see what I'm saying? If you're just sort of keeping that in mind and you have this center place, then it just helps you discern. And also it helps you do self-checks, which we need to do on the regular too, right? But this for me is life-saving. It's life-saving. And so I hope this has given you a lot to think about. I hope it got the wheels turning, like I always say. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming along to hear the message. And I'm inspired. I have a lot of ideas. I want to do some episodes where, I'm not so focused on wolves in sheep's clothing and deception and things like that. I want to do some more uplifting content, specifically for people who would like this channel anyway. People who have been through some stuff, people who have been put on a different path because of their experiences, and their eyes have been opened and all this stuff. I think that when you connect with other people who have been there, then unrelated topics can be enjoyed even more. You're just sharing kind of from that same heart space, and so it's a different kind of connection, and it's beautiful. So I thank you for being here. I'm very grateful for you. I hope your new year 2025 is just blessed with abundance and all good things, and I just hope that you'll return for more videos. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you feel called to share them in the comments. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.